What is going on, everybody? This is Pete from You Knows What I Means here, and we are covering the 2016 Republican GOP debate. This is my review, my thoughts, and commentary on the subject. And here are all the candidates here lined up. This is my review, this is my thumbnail. And please note that this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content. So we are 38 minutes into the show here. Is to sense strength and resolve on the other side, and we have all of that. Type 19 if you can hear me, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. We could rebuild the missile defense program. We haven't our will. We could also, to Senator Rubio's point, give the Egyptians what they've asked for, which is intelligence. We could give the Jordanians what they've asked for. Nope, you're cutting her off. Thank you, please shut up. Please. Thank you, please be quiet. What's up, Alex? The next president, no matter who he or she may be, will inherit President Obama's Iran deal. Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit the thumbs up button, type 2 if you haven't yet, type 3 if you're subscribed to me, and type 4 if you're not subscribed yet. Is, quote, inexperience, and, quote, playing to a crowd. Respond to Governor Kasich, please.
Well, let me tell you, Jake, the single biggest national security threat facing America right now is the threat of a nuclear Iran. We've seen 6.5 years.
Look at this guy's face, man. Seriously.
Weakness is provocative.
He looks like, I hate to say it, but he looks kind of like a serial killer.
This deal on its face.
Like, I could expect that guy cleaning off a knife. Isn't that Rand Paul or whatever the hell his name is?
The world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. This deal abandons 4 American hostages in Iran, and this deal will only accelerate Iran's acquiring of nuclear weapons. You better believe it. If I am elected president on the very first day in office, I will rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal.
Why is that not, as Governor Kasich says, playing to the crowd and an example of you being inexperienced?
Well, let's be clear when it comes to experience. What President Obama wants to do is he's run with the United Nations, and he wants to use the United Nations to bind the United States and take away our sovereignty. Well, I spent 5.5 years as the Solicitor General of Texas, the lead lawyer for the state in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I went in front of the Supreme Court and took on the World Court of the United Nations in a case called Medellin versus Texas. And we won an historic victory, saying the World Court of the UN has no power to bind the United States, and no president of the United States.
That's right, Alex said. I'd be serving up chicken parmesan wedges every night, every day for the kids.
They're giving up the core responsibility of commander-in-chief, and as president, I would never do that.
Governor Kasich did Senator Cruz display to the crowd.
Let me just say this. First of all, I think it's a bad agreement. I would never have done it. But you know, a lot of our problems today is that we don't have a relationship with our allies. If we want to go everywhere alone, we will not have the strength if we can rebuild our relationships with our allies. Now, this agreement, we don't know what's going to happen in 18 months. I served on the Defense Committee for 18 years. I've seen lots of issues in foreign affairs and in terms of global politics. You have to be.
What's up, Jason Shipman and the Slayer Cookie? Everyone watching in Dakota, type 1 if you have hit the thumbs up button, type 2 if you haven't yet, type 3 if you're subscribed to me, and type 4 if you're not subscribed yet. Thank you, Governor Kasich. Please shut the hell up. Thank you.
Governor Walker says that President Obama should.
Did he just say Governor Wonka? Oh, the guy with the stupid hair. Basically, Willy Wonka. Dude, who would vote for Willy Wonka? I would. I would vote for Willy Wonka for president. President Wonka. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of total masturbation. I don't understand why they do all of these things to you. What's up, Malik and Dakota? Everyone put hashtag Willy Wonka for president. Should Obama cancel a state dinner for China's president over currency manipulation and cyber attacks on the U.S.? Yes or no? Governor Wonka! It sounds like he says Wonker. There they are. All the chocolate. With me. Just butchering a child's dream. With me.
The reality is it's a bad deal on day one. It's a bad deal because this president has allowed Iran to go closer and closer. I'd love to play cards with this guy because Barack Obama holds everything with Iran. We need leaders who can stand up and actually say that. His father was the chief diplomatic envoy to China.
This is the CNN news debate, guys. For those of you who don't know, now you know. There's Jeb Bush looking like George Bush. You know what confuses me, and maybe because I just don't know the history, is why is it that George Bush, his brother, has the accent, but he does not? He has a hint of an accent, but George Bush would just be like, we cannot deal with terror.
Well, George Bush was from Texas. He's from Florida, so maybe it's not as bad.
They're not brothers? Are they stepbrothers?
No, but I mean, wasn't George Bush originally in Texas for like everywhere he was like governor? And then...
I always thought they were both from Texas. Malik, you don't know what the debate is all about? Look, everyone's just talking over each other.
This is really about the survival of Western civilization. This is not just a little conflict with a Middle Eastern country. We just now given over $100 billion to the equivalent in U.S. terms is $5 trillion. This threatens Israel immediately. This threatens the entire Middle East. But it threatens the United States of America. And we can't treat a nuclear Iranian government as if it is just some government that would like to have some power. This is a government that for 36 years has killed Americans. They've kidnapped Americans. They've named Americans. They have sponsored terrorist groups, Hamas and Hezbollah. And they threaten the very essence of Western civilization. To give them this agreement that the president treats like the Magna Carta.
The Magna Carta. Wow, now we're really digging deep.
And we must simply make it very clear that the next president, one of us on this stage, will absolutely not honor that agreement and will destroy it and will be tough with Iran because otherwise we put every person in this world in a very dangerous place. Jake, I'd like to look at
We're going to turn now to Hugh Hewitt from Salem Radio Network.
Thank you, Jake. Mr. Trump, 2 years ago, President Obama drew a red line that the Syrian dictator Bashar Assad crossed. President Obama threatened to strike. He did not. His knees buckled. We now have 4 million refugees. Syria is a living hell. And he turned to the Congress for the authority.
What's up, Timothy Birch?
You have 3 senators to your right who said no.
Broccoli Obama. That's funny.
Done when Bashar Assad crossed that line.
Little one, I wouldn't have drawn the line, but once he drew it, we had no choice but to go across. They did bear some responsibility, but I think he probably didn't do it not for that reason. Somehow he just doesn't have courage. There's something missing from our president. Had he crossed the line and really gone in with force or done something to Assad, if he had gone in with tremendous force, you wouldn't have millions of people displaced all over the world. I think they had a responsibility, absolutely. I think we have 3 of them here. I think they have a responsibility. Yeah, they have zero responsibility. Because let's remember what the president said. He said the attack that he was going to conduct was going to be
States military was not built to conduct pinprick attacks. If the United States military is going to be engaged by a commander-in-chief, it should only be engaged in an endeavor to win. And we're not going to authorize use of force if you're not putting men and women in a position where they can win. And quite frankly, people don't trust this president as commander-in-chief because of that.
No one's going to trust anybody until you fulfill promises, period. Okay, you could talk. These debates are fucking pointless, man, because until somebody gets into office, it's like, okay, now it's your turn. Okay, you said you were going to do A, B, and C. Are you going to deliver on those 3 promises? Oh, well, you know, I didn't know before I got here that I couldn't do that. That's stupid, man. Everything that any one of these people are saying at this debate is horseshit until one of them actually gets into office, and then they can fulfill on what they said they were going to do. And Obama promised so much shit and delivered on what, maybe a third of it?
They all do it.
And then when they're in there, they're like, oh, you know what? Now I understand why the previous president did what he did. I guess we should just continue doing that. You know, like, it's stupid.
It's really
The reason why I proposed President Obama bombing Syria is because he couldn't answer the question, what do you do if chemical weapons end up in the hands of radical Islamic terrorists like al-Nusra, like al-Qaeda, like ISIS? Now, I also want to respond to several of the folks up here who said, we should trust this Iranian deal and see if the Iranians will comply. Anyone who's paying attention to what Khamenei says knows that they will not comply. There's a reason Khamenei refers to Israel as the little Satan, and America is the great Satan in the middle of
How old is everybody here?
treaty.
I'm 28, so how old is everybody here?
Chanting death to America. I'm reminded of a great editorial cartoon. It shows the Ayatollah Khamenei saying death to all Americans. And then it shows John Kerry coming back saying, can we meet you halfway? We need a commander-in-chief who will stand up and protect this country. And I'll tell you, I can't wait to stand on that debate stage with Hillary Clinton and to make abundantly clear, if you vote for Hillary, you are voting for the Ayatollah Khamenei to possess a nuclear weapon. If you elect me as president, under no circumstances will a theocratic Ayatollah who chants death to America ever be allowed to acquire.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
We're going to go to the end of that. I want to say something about what Senator just said. Let me suggest to you, we believe that we operate better in the world when our allies work with us. President Bush did it in the Gulf War. We work better when we are unified. Secondly, nobody's trusting Iran. They violate the deal. We put on the sanctions. We have the high moral ground to talk to our allies in Europe to get them to go with us. If they don't go with us, we slap the sanctions on anyway. If they fund these radical groups that threaten Israel and all of the West, then we should rip up the deal and put the sanctions back on. Let me make that clear.
It's just people talking over each other the whole time.
You better believe that I would do everything in my power as the commander-in-chief to stop them having a nuclear weapon. We can have it, and we can have our allies, and we can be strong as a country, and we can project it.
Like, I just want to strangle all of them. I just want to strangle all of them except Trump. Trump is the only one bringing a smile to my face. Seriously. They're like, I promise, if I'm the commander-in-chief, I promise you that we will never get attacked. And it's just like, you can't promise shit. Okay? 9/11 was the exact example that nobody is safe. Okay? Whether 9/11 was an inside job or we were actually really attacked by, you know, the Taliban or whatever, it just goes to show nobody is safe anywhere. Okay? There's always going to be somebody smarter than the smartest guy. It's just the way it is.
It's true.
I'm telling you, I really should run for president, man. I'll be honest. I would stand up there and I'd be like, I'll be honest with you. All these people are promising you things that they can't do until they actually get elected. You put them in there, and you know, and then they're like, ooh, yeah, about all those tax cuts we were going to do, and all those refunds. Yeah, I didn't really know we couldn't do that, so thanks. I'm here. I'm really not going to do anything. I'm just gonna let it ride. Seriously, man, if I was up there, people would vote for me in a heartbeat. They'd be like, this fucking guy, he seems kind of stupid, but he brings up a good point. All of these people, all of them, are bullshitters except for Trump. I think Trump is the only logical one. Because he is outside the box, But I haven't heard the Democratic people. What I think is bullshit is that Trump jumped on board with the abortion shit. That I'm like, abortion should always be a choice, always. But again, we haven't seen the Democratic candidates yet. What's up, Dylan? No problem, man. We're just hanging out.
Because the courts just decided that something was going to be.
Please note to YouTube employees, this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content. Everyone watching, type 1 if you have hit the thumbs up button, type 2 if you haven't yet, type 3 if you're subscribed to me already, and type 4 if you're not subscribed to me yet.
We made accommodation to the 4-foot shooter to let him grow a beard. We made accommodations to the detainees at Gitmo. I've been to Gitmo and I've seen the accommodations that we made to the Muslim detainees who killed Americans. You're telling me that you cannot make an accommodation for an elected Democrat county clerk from Rowan County, Kentucky? What else is it other than the criminalization of her faith and the exaltation of the faith of everyone else who might be a 4-foot shooter or a detainee at Gitmo?
Well, I'm not telling you that, Governor, but Governor Bush is because he disagrees. He thinks that Kid Davis will not hold the law. You disagree?
I think we're not stating that view. I think there needs to be accommodation for someone acting on their faith. Religious conscience is a first freedom. It's a powerful part of our Bill of Rights. And in a big, tolerant country, we should respect the rule of law, allow people in this country, as opposed to the decision of you can't just say, well, gays can't get married now. But this woman, there should be some accommodation for her conscience, just as there should be for people that are florists, that don't want to participate in weddings, or bakers. A great country like us should find a way to have accommodations for people so that we can solve this problem in the right way. This should be solved at the local level. And so we do agree.
Governor, you said what? She is sworn to uphold the law.
She is. And so if she, based on conscience, can't sign that marriage license, then there should be someone in her office to be able to do it. And if the law needs to be changed in the state of Kentucky, which is what she's advocating, it should be changed.
Let me go to my colleague.
What's up, Xavier and Iman Gaming?
Senator Cruz is so committed to stripping federal funds from Planned Parenthood that it could result in shutting down the federal government in just about 2 weeks. Do you agree with Senator Cruz's tactic?
Well, I agree that we should defend Planned Parenthood. I don't know many people in America that don't think that we should. And in my state, we're trying to figure out how to get it done because we're threatened with the federal government taking all of our Medicaid money away. I think there's a way to get this done by giving governors the ability to be able to act to defund Planned Parenthood. But when it comes to closing down the federal government, you have to be very careful about that. When we shut the government down, if we have a chance of success and it's a great principle, yes, the President of the United States is not going to sign this. And all we're going to do is shut the government down, and then we're going to open it up, and American people are going to shake their heads and say, what's the story with these Republicans? So I think there is a way to get to cutting off the funding for Planned Parenthood. I was in the Congress for 18 years, balanced the budget, cut taxes, got it done, changed welfare, went around the president to get welfare reform done. There are ways to do it without having to shut the government down, but I'm sympathetic to the fact that we don't want this organization to get funded, and the money ought to be reprogrammed for family planning and other organizations that don't support this tactic. But I would not be for shutting the government down because I don't think it's going to work out.
Thank you. Senator Cruz, I could just add that on this stage not that long ago, Senator Graham said that this tactic that you're pushing would tank the Republicans' ability to win in 2016.
Well, let me tell you, Dan, number one, I'm proud to stand for life. These Planned Parenthood videos are horrifying. I would encourage every American to watch these videos. Planned Parenthood officials callously, heartlessly bartering and selling the body parts of human beings. And then ask yourself, are these my values? These are horrifying. On these videos, Planned Parenthood also essentially confesses to multiple felonies. It is a felony with 10 years jail term to sell the body parts of unborn children. Doing absolutely. We shouldn't be sending $500 million of taxpayer money to funding an ongoing criminal enterprise. And I'll tell you, the fact that this discussion by preemptively surrendering to Barack Obama and saying we'll give in because Obama threatens a veto. You know, Obama's committed to his principles, his liberal principles. He will fight for them. He says, I will veto any budget that doesn't fund Planned Parenthood, and Republicans surrender. We need to stop surrendering and start standing for our principles.
Thank you, Senator. Governor, I want to go to you. Is it what Senator Cruz says, a surrender by Republicans?
Chris.
6 years ago, as the brand new first ever pro-life governor of New Jersey since Roe versus Wade, I defunded Planned Parenthood now 8 times in New Jersey. Since the day I walked in as governor, Planned Parenthood has not been funded in New Jersey. We stood up, and every one of those vetoes has been sustained. But here's the problem. We're fighting with each other up here. We agree. Let's ask. She believes in a systematic murder of children in the womb to preserve their body parts data in a way that for profit. It is disgusting, and the American people need to hear it. We shouldn't be fighting with each other. She's the real opponent. She's the real problem.
Governor, the reality is, in just 2 weeks' time, we are going to be facing a question about whether or not it's enough to shut down the government to make that statement because there's still a Democrat in the White House.
I'll tell you what I'd be willing to fight for. Why don't we put tax reform on the president's desk so we could simplify this tax system?
Yes,
You know, it's really important that we got to talk about what we would be willing to shut down for. Why don't we put tax reform on this president's desk and make him veto if that's what he wants to do? Why haven't we repealed and replaced Obamacare? Make him veto if that's what he wants to do. And why don't we do the same thing with Planned Parenthood? We elected a Republican Congress to do this, and they should be doing it, and they're not, and they're giving the president a pass.
One more time. I'm sorry, I just want to get
I put it in the list, Dana. We should be doing these things and forcing the president to take action. Let's force him to do what he says he's going to do. Now, I don't know if we're going to do it or not, but let's force him to do it.
And I'd like to link these two issues, both of which are incredibly important, Iran and Planned Parenthood. One has something to do with the defense of the security of this nation. The other has something to do with the defense of the character of this nation. You have not heard a plan about Iran from any politician.
Plan from Iran.
On day one in the Oval Office, I will make 2 phone calls. The first to my good friend Bibi Netanyahu to reassure him we will stand with the state of Israel. The second to the Supreme Leader to tell him that unless and until he opens every military and every nuclear facility to real anytime, anywhere inspections by our people, not his, we, the United States of America, will make it as difficult as possible to move money around the global financial system. We can do that. We don't need any cooperation to do it. And every ally and every adversary we have in this world will know that the United States of America is back in the leadership business, which is how we must stand with our allies. As regards Planned Parenthood, anyone who has watched this video can idea Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to watch these tapes, watch a fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking, while someone says we have to keep it alive to harvest its brain. This is about the character of our nation.
How often are they doing that? Like, are they really doing that? Like, where are they getting this information from?
I doubt that happened.
It doesn't make sense.
You're not sure we have $500 million for women's health issues. Now, you since said that you misspoke, you didn't mean to say women's health issues, but Donald Trump said that quote, that comment, which Hillary Clinton did seize upon immediately, will haunt you the same way Mitt Romney's 47% video haunted him. Tell Donald Trump why he's wrong.
He's wrong on a lot of things, but this is wrong because I'm the most pro-life governor on this stage. I got to act on that. It's part of who I am. Life is a gift from God. From beginning to end,
should make Triple H. Triple H should be president.
Philosophy to Washington, D.C. So here's a solution to this. Title 10 of the HHS funding was something that was called the Reagan Rule. It was passed in 1988. And in that rule, it was defined, the courts approved this, that a Planned Parenthood couldn't separate the money between the actual abortion procedures with 330,000 abortions that take place at this point and their promotion. He interpreted it the right way. The courts ruled in his favor, and Planned Parenthood did not get funding during that time until President Clinton came in. But I'm elected president. We will restore that interpretation of Title 10, and this deal will be finished.
Thank you, Governor Bush. Let me just, I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues. You said in this earlier, you said that that's going to haunt him.
I think it's a terrible statement. I think it's going to haunt him absolutely. He came back later. He said he misspoke. There was no question because I heard when he said the statement. I was watching and he said the statement, and I said, "Wow, I can't believe it. I will take care of women. I respect women. I will take care of women." One thing
It's channel 25 for me on CNN.
we're talking about Iran. The agreement was terrible. It was incompetent. I've never seen anything like it. One of the worst contracts of any kind I've ever seen. And nobody ever mentions North Korea, where you have this maniac sitting there, and he actually has nuclear weapons. And somebody better start thinking about North Korea and perhaps a couple of other places, but certainly North Korea. And Ted and I have spoken. A lot of us have spoken. We're talking about Iran. They're bad actors. Bad things are going to happen. But in the meantime, you have somebody right now in North
Show us the
Korea who's got
TV.
nuclear weapons and who is saying almost every other week, I'm ready to use it, and we don't even mention it.
There are 13,000 community-based organizations that provide health services to women. 13,000 in this country. I don't believe that Planned Parenthood should get a penny from the federal government. Those organizations should get funding, just as I increased funding when I was governor of the state. That's the way you do this. Is you improve the condition for people. And now, when I was governor, we also increased the opportunities for them. Women's income grew 3 times faster than national average when I was governor. So why did you say that? I know, but why did you say that? I heard myself. Why did you say that? We increased child support.
You said you were going to buy funding from women's health. You said it. Yeah, except you said it.
We're going to get to.
There's something bigger to this. Now, I'm like some of the other governors here. I get funded Planned Parenthood 4.5 years in the blue state. But it's bigger. We did that in the blue state. We took the money and put it in women's health. So we did exactly what we're talking about here. I think the bigger issue here is we should be able to do this nationally. This is precisely why so many Republicans are upset with Washington. They see the House and they see the Senate and say, why can't we pass this? Why can't we defund Planned Parenthood and spending bill? Forget about the 60 vote here. There's no reason the Constitution doesn't call for 60 votes. Pass it with 51 votes. Put it on the desk of the president and go forward and actually make it better.
We're going to get to many of these issues. We're still in the first block, believe it or not. We're going to get to many of these issues. But before we end this block, Ms. Fiorina, I do want to ask you about this. In an interview last week in Rolling Stone magazine, Donald Trump said the following about you, quote, "Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that, the face of our next president?" Mr. Trump later said he was talking about your persona, not your appearance. Please feel free to respond what you think about his persona.
You know, it's interesting to me. Mr. Trump said that he heard Mr. Bush very clearly in what Mr. Bush said. I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
I think she's got a beautiful face, and I think she's a beautiful woman.
All right, on that note, in less than 2 minutes, we're going to take a very quick break. In less than 2 minutes, the most contentious issue on the campaign trail, and the candidates on the stage are split over how to handle it. That's coming up next. Please give some applause to the candidates.
Mr. Bishop, we're at war. Rolling Stone raids. Hard sacrifice grabs you and doesn't let go. It's smart, tense, and beautifully acted. Toby Maguire is superb, and Leo People don't have to think about where their electricity comes from. They flip the switch and the light comes on. It's our job to make sure that it does. Using natural gas, this power plant can produce enough energy for about 600,000 homes. Generating electricity that's cleaner and reliable with fewer emissions, it matters.
On Full Frontal, Sam reveals the winner of the 2016 Nobel Peace Prize.
President Donald Trump. I got a Trump stamp and everything.
A Trump stamp.
Full Frontal, Samantha Bee, this January on TBS.
You tuck here, you tuck there. If you're a toe tucker because of toenail fungus, ask your doctor now about prescription Carradine. Use daily Carradine drops may kill the fungus at the site of infection and yes, the root of your toe tucking. Carradine may cause irritation at the treated site. Most common side effects include skin peeling, ingrown toenail, redness, itching, and swelling. Tell your doctor if you have any side effect that bothers you or does not go away. Stop toe tucking and get the drop.
Stop toe
Ask
tucking.
your doctor today about Carradine.
The Republican Presidential Debate is brought to you by Carradine.
Welcome to CNN's Republican Presidential Debate. No topic perhaps has been more combustible in this campaign than the issue of immigration. Mr. Trump, you have called for...
So here we go. We're on to the next block here.
Governor Christie has said, quote, there are not enough law enforcement officers, local, county, state, and federal combined, to forcibly deport 11 to 12 million people. Tell Governor Christie how much your plan will cost and how you will get it done.
Correct. First of all, I want to build a wall that works. So important, and it's a big part of it. Second of all, we have a lot of really bad dudes in this country from outside, and I think Chris knows that maybe as well as anybody. They go, if I get elected, first day, they've got gangs all over the place, Chicago, Baltimore, no matter where you live. We have a country based on laws. I will make sure that those laws will keep you. These are illegal immigrants. I don't think you're going to be asking this question if I didn't run. Because when
See,
I
now
ran,
Trump is
I
talking
made
about the
myself
illegal immigrant situation, which everyone loves so much.
heat like nobody has taken heat in a long time. And then they found out that the killing
What?
of Kane,
Yeah,
San
oh
Francisco,
God.
so many other crimes, they found out that I was right. And most people, many people,
God.
apologize to me. I don't think we would be talking about illegal immigration if it weren't for me. So,
I can't wait till the crowd starts booing him.
they come back if they deserve to come back. If they've had a bad record, if they've been arrested, they've been in jail, they're never coming back. We're going to have a country again. Right now, we don't have a country, we don't have a border, and we're going to do something about it. And it can be done with proper management, and it can be done with heart.
Governor Christie, you and I have talked about this in an interview. You say that his big wall, his plan to deport 11 to 12 million undocumented immigrants, it sounds great, but it's never going to happen. Tell them why you're skeptical of his plan.
Well, first off, Jake, I don't yield to anybody on how we enforce the law. I'm the only person on the stage who spent 7 years as the United States Attorney after September 11th. And I know how to do this. The fact is, though, that for 15,000 people a day to be deported every day for 2 years is an undertaking that almost none of us could accomplish given the current levels of funding and the current number of law enforcement officers. But here's what we need to do, and I think this is where Donald was absolutely right. What we need to do is to secure our border. And we need to do it with more than just a wall. We need to use electronics, we need to use drones, we need to use FBI, DA, and ATF. And yes, we need to take the fingerprint of every person who comes into this country on a visa, and when they overstay their visa, we need to tap them on the shoulder and say, you have overstayed your welcome, you're taking advantage of the American people, it's time for you to go. If we had that kind of system in place, we wouldn't have the 11 million people we have.
Thank you, Governor Christie.
By the way, I agree with what Chris is saying, but I will say this: illegal immigration is costing us more than $200 billion a year just maintaining what we have.
I want to bring in Dr. Carson because he too has been skeptical of your plan to manually deport 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants. He said, quote, people
He's just funny, is what it is. Hungry Hippo.
Well, first of all, recognize that we have an incredible
This guy Ben Carson, people are loving this guy.
Arizona a few weeks ago.
They really are.
I mean, the fences that were there were not manned. And those are the kind of fences when I was a kid that would barely slow us down. So I don't see any purpose in having them. Now, what we need to do is look at something that actually works. Yuma County, Arizona, they stopped 97% of the illegal immigration through there. They put in a double fence with a road so that there was quick access by the enforcement people. If we don't seal the border, the rest of the stuff really doesn't matter. It's kind of ridiculous, all the other things that we talk about. We have the ability to do it, we don't have the will to do it. There was one area where they had cut a hole in the fence, and to repair it, they put a few strands of barbed wire across. Well, the photographers who were there with us, they wanted to photograph us from the
Everybody watching, type 1 if you've hit the thumbs up button, type 2 if you haven't yet, type 3 if you're subscribed to me already, and type 4 if you're not subscribed yet.
That's how easy it is to get across. And the drugs, I mean, it goes on and on and on. ICE tells them to release these people. 67,000 criminals released on the out property.
You said about Donald Trump's plan to immediately deport 11 to 12 million undocumented immigrants. People who say that have no idea what this entails. Why not?
But I have also said, if anybody knows how to do that, that I would be willing to listen. And if they can, specify exactly how that's going to be done and what the cost, and it sounds reasonable, then I think it's worth discussing. But
Let's continue the conversation about illegal immigration with Dana.
Governor Bush, Mr. Trump has suggested that your views on immigration are influenced by your Mexican-born wife. He said that...
Yeah, no, I really don't think Trump's being racist at all. Saying that he wants to deport people that are illegal is not being racist. It's trying to be, conservative. It's trying to look out for the country's well-being, It's not that he's racist towards Mexicans. He's really not.
My wife is a Mexican-American. She's an American by choice. She loves this country as much as anybody in this world. And she wants a secure border, but she wants to embrace the traditional American values that make us special and make us unique. We're at a crossroads right now. Are we going to take the Reagan approach, the hopeful, optimistic approach, the approach that says that you come to our country legally, you pursue your dreams with
Sure, shout out to Dakota Donahue.
or the Donald Trump approach? The approach that says that everything is bad, that everything's coming to an end. I'm on the Reagan side of this.
That they come into our country as an act of love. With all of the problems that we have in so many instances, we have wonderful people coming in. But with all of the problems, this is not an act of love. Because legal immigration, by the way, in favor of Common Core, which is also a disaster. But legal immigration...
What?
Because he carries on that.
What?
Mr. Trump,
What?
Common Core.
What is that?
Our new standards and curriculum.
Oh. Hungry Hippo, what's going on, man? Tell us what's going on.
Well, first of all, I wrote a book about this 4 years ago.
And everyone, please note, this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content.
But to build a wall and to deport people, $500,000 a month would cost hundreds of billions of dollars.
Anchor babies. Never heard of that before. What does that mean?
It would send a signal to the rest of the world that the United States values that are so important for our long-term success no longer matter in this country.
As I said, we are spending $200 billion. We are spending $200 billion a year on maintaining what we have. We will move them out. The great ones will come back. The good ones will come back. They'll be expedited. They'll be back. They'll come back legally. We'll have a country. They'll come back legally.
On that note, you have criticized Governor Bush for speaking Spanish on the campaign trail. You said, quote, he clearly set an example by speaking English in the United States. What's wrong with speaking
Well, I think
Spanish?
it's wonderful and all, but I did it a little bit half-heartedly, but I do mean it to a large extent. We have a country where to assimilate you have to speak English, and I think that where he was.
This is where things are going to start getting squirrely here. You know.
I'm not the first one to say this now. We've had many people over the years, for many, many years, saying the same thing. This is a country where we speak English, not Spanish.
Well, I've been speaking English here tonight, and I'll keep speaking English for the simple fact is that a high school kid asked me a question in Spanish. A school
A cunt.
program that was created under my watch, the largest voucher program in the country, where kids can go to a Christian school, and they ask me a question in Spanish. I'm going to show respect and answer that question in Spanish, even though they do speak English, and even though they embrace American values.
This was a reporter, not a high school kid. I agree that English is the unified language of our country, and everyone should learn to speak it. It's important. I want to tell you a story about someone who didn't speak English that well. It was my grandfather. He came to this country in the 1960s. He escaped from Cuba, and he lived with us growing up. And my grandfather loved America. He understood what was so special about this country. He loved Ronald Reagan, and we're very proud of the fact that we're here this evening. My grandfather instilled in me the belief that I was blessed to live in the one society in all of human history where even I, the son of a bartender and a maid, could aspire to have anything and be anything that I was willing to work hard to achieve. But he taught me that in Spanish because it was the language he was most comfortable in. And he became a conservative even though he got his views in Spanish. And so I do give him
Vingador.
because I believe the free
Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit that thumbs up button. Type 2 if you have not done so yet. Type 3 if you're subscribed to me already. And type 4 if you're not subscribed yet.
Thank you, Senator Rubio. Senator Cruz. Senator Cruz, this week we learned more about Dr. Carson's plan for the 11 to 12 million undocumented immigrants in this country. Dr. Carson proposed giving these undocumented immigrants a 6-month grace period to pay back taxes, then to let them become guest workers, and only to deport people who fail to do that.
Right,
Well, how would you say it, sir? I was just reading the Wall Street Journal post, but please tell us.
Well, what I said, after we sell the borders, after we turn off the spigot that dispenses all the goodies, so we don't have people coming in here including employment, that people who had a pristine record, we should consider allowing them to become guest workers primarily in the agricultural sphere, because that's the place where Americans don't seem to want to work. That's what I said. And they have a 6-month period to do that. If they don't do it within that time period, then they become illegal. And as illegals, they will be treated as such.
Okay, from the horse's mouth. Senator Cruz, does that fit your definition of amnesty?
Well, I'm very glad that Donald Trump's being in this race has forced the mainstream media finally to talk about illegal immigration. I think that's very important. I like to respect Ben Carson. I'll let him talk about his own plans. But I will say this, the natural next question the primary voters are asking after we focus on illegal immigration is, okay, what are the records of the various candidates? And this is an issue on which there are stark differences. A majority of the men and women on this stage have previously and publicly embraced amnesty. I am the only candidate on this stage who has never supported amnesty, and in fact, who helped lead the fight to stop a massive amnesty plan in 2013 when Barack Obama and Harry Reid joined the Washington Republicans in a massive amnesty plan. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeff Sessions helping lead the fight. Folks here have talked about how do you secure the border. Well, I've been leading the fight in the Senate to triple the border patrol, to put in place fencings and walls, to put in place a strong biometric exit entry system.
Senator Rubio, I'm not sure exactly. We'll come back to you in 1 second, sir. Senator Rubio, I'm not sure exactly whose plan he's saying constitutes amnesty, but I know he has said it about your plan in the past, so I want to give you a chance to respond. Then Dr. Carson will come to you.
Well, let me say that legal immigration is not an issue I read about in the newspaper. Immigration, illegal immigration, all the good aspects of immigration, and all the negative ones as well. I live with it. My family is immigrants. My neighbors are all immigrants. My in-laws are all immigrants. So I've seen every aspect of it. And I can tell you America doesn't have one immigration problem, it has 3. First, despite the fact that we are the most generous country in the history of the world and allowing people to come here legally, we have people still coming illegally. Second, we have a legal immigration system that no longer works. It primarily is built on the basis of whether or not you have a relative living here instead of married. And third, we have 11 or 12 million people, many of whom have been here for longer than a decade, who are already here illegally. And we must deal with all three of these problems. We cannot deal with all three of these problems in one massive piece of legislation. I learned that. We tried it that way. Here's the way forward. First, we must secure our border, the physical border with a wall, absolutely, but we also need to have an entry-exit tracking system. 40% of the people who come here illegally come legally, and then they overstay the visa. We also need a mandatory E-Verify system. After we've done that, step 2 would be to modernize our legal immigration system. So you come to America on the basis of what you can contribute economically, not whether or not simply you have a relative living here. And after we've done those two things, I believe the American people will be very reasonable and responsible about what you do with someone who's been here and isn't a criminal. If you're a criminal, obviously you will not be able to stay.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Carson, I want to give you 30 seconds. I'd like you to answer the question. Senator Cruz describes plans such as yours as amnesty. Why is your plan not amnesty?
My plan is not amnesty for a number of reasons. Number one, I've talked to farmers, and they said they cannot hire Americans to do the kind of job that I'm talking about. And the second reason is because the individuals who register as guest workers, they don't get to vote, they are not American citizens, and they don't get the rights and privileges of American citizens. That's the key. But the other thing that I want to bring up is I mentioned something earlier, I think it was just sort of glossed over. I talked about the success in Unacomb. I mean, incredible success. And the Department of Justice said, no, we don't want to do that. That's too successful. We don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. All we have to do is look at things that work. All we have to do is usually look at the
Carson. I want to talk about the issue of birthright citizenship, which has emerged since the first debate as a major issue in this campaign. Mr. Trump, you say that babies born in the United States to undocumented immigrants should not any longer get automatic American citizenship. Ms. Fiorina says that you are pandering on this issue and acting like the politicians that you rail against. What's your message to Ms. Fiorina on birthright citizenship?
Well, first of all, the 14th Amendment says very, very clearly to a lot of great legal scholars, not television scholars, but legal scholars, that it is wrong. If it can be corrected with an act of Congress, probably doesn't even need that. A woman gets pregnant. She's 9 months. She walks across the border. She has the baby in the United States, and we take care of the baby for 85 years. I don't think so. And by the way, Mexico and almost every other country anywhere in the world doesn't have that. We're the only ones dumb enough, stupid enough to have it. And people, and by the way, this is not just with respect to Mexico. They're coming from Asia. They have babies here, and all of a sudden we have to take care of the babies for the life of the baby. The 14th Amendment, it reads properly. You can go, and it's probably going to be happy to go through a process of court, probably ends up at the Supreme Court. But there are a lot of great legal scholars that say...
It's funny, whenever Trump starts talking, the viewers go up.
Absolutely not. We're the only country, one of the only countries. We're going to take care of those babies for 70, 75, 80, 90 years? I don't think so.
Ms. Fiorina, the vast majority of countries do not have birthright citizenship. Donald Trump is right about that. Why is it pandering?
What can you hear, Hungry Hippo?
First, let me say we have just spent a good bit of time discussing with Republicans how to solve this problem. I would ask your audience...
Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit the thumbs up button. Type 2 if you haven't yet. Type 3 if you're subscribed to me already. Type 4 if you're not subscribed yet.
2008 on solving the immigration problem. He entered Washington with majorities in the House and the Senate. He could have chosen to do anything to solve this problem. Instead, he chose to do nothing. Why? Because the Democrats don't want this issue solved. They want it to be an issue that they can use. As to birthright citizenship, the truth is you can't just wave your hands and say the 14th Amendment is going to go away. It will take an extremely arduous vote in Congress, followed by 2/3 of the states. And if that doesn't work to amend the Constitution, then it is a long, arduous process in court. And
yeah, her face does look like she just bit into a lemon.
With all due respect, Mr. Trump, we have been talking about illegal
But she'd still get it.
for 25 years. San Francisco has been a sanctuary city since 1989.
The Cure is here with 43 people watching.
Nothing. The border remains insecure. The legal immigration system remains broken. Look, we know what it takes to
And please note that this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorina.
If you guys can hear me okay, type 19.
Allows you to have an interpretation where this is not very good and where it could be good. I've seen both sides, and some of the greatest scholars agree with me without having to go through Congress. If you do go through Congress, you can absolutely solve that.
You can stipulate this, but not everyone agrees with you.
That's good.
Senator Paul, I'm bringing you in. Where do you stand on the issue of birthright citizenship?
Well, I hate to say Donald Trump has a bit of a point here. The case that was decided around 1900 was people who had a green card were here illegally, and they said that their children were citizens. There's never been a direct Supreme Court case on people who are here illegally, whether or not their kids are citizens. So it hasn't really been completely adjudicated. The 14th Amendment says that those who are here and under the jurisdiction. The original author of the 14th Amendment said on the Senate floor that this was applying to slaves and did not specifically.
Make sure everybody here watching, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe.
About the economy and about jobs. We have two
I'm almost at 13,000 subscribers.
You were CEO of Hewlett Packard. Donald Trump says you, quote, ran HP into the ground. You laid off tens of thousands of people. You got viciously fired. For voters looking to somebody with private sector experience to create American jobs, why should they pick you and not Donald Trump?
I led Hewlett Packard through a very difficult time, the worst technology recession in 25 years. The NASDAQ stock index fell 80%. It took 15 years for the stock.
Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit that thumbs up like button down below. Type the number 2 if you haven't done so yet. Type the number 3 if you're subscribed to me already. And type 4 if you're not subscribed to me yet. And everyone in the comments, tell me who your favorite Republican candidate is. Kevin, it's basically just a hangout, just to discuss it live. Do it live.
Almost 300,000 jobs. We went from lagging behind to leading in every product category and every market segment. We must lead in this nation again, and some tough calls are going to be required. But as for the firing, I have been very honest about this from the day it happened. When you challenge the status quo, you make enemies. I made a few. Steve Jobs told me that when he called me the day I was fired to say, hey, been there, done that twice. It's also true that the man that led my firing, Tom Perkins, just took out a full-page ad in the New York Times to say he was wrong, I was right, I was a terrific CEO, the board was dysfunctional, and he thinks I will make a magnificent president of the United States. Well, Mr. Trump,
Really?
The head of the Yale Business School, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, made a ridiculous statement, one of the worst statements we've seen here, that he has ever seen. Ranked one of the top 20 in the history of business. The company was a disaster and continues to be a disaster. They still haven't recovered. In fact, today, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, they fired another 25 or 30,000 people, saying we still haven't recovered from the catastrophe. When Carly says the revenues went up, that's because she got caught that. It was a terrible deal, and it really led to the destruction of the company. Now, one other company before that was Lucid. Carly was at Lucid before that. And Lucid turned out to be a catastrophe also. So I always say this, she can't run any of my companies. But I can help.
Ms. Fiorina, I want to ask you a question.
Jeffrey Sonnenfeld is a well-known Clintonite and obviously had it out for me from the moment that I arrived at Hewlett Packard. But honestly,
man, Trump is getting people riled up.
While I'm as entertained as anyone by this personal back and forth about the history of Donald and Carly's career, for the 55-year-old construction worker out at Armies tonight who doesn't have a job, who can't fund his child's education, I got to tell you the truth. They don't care less about your careers. They care about theirs. So let's start talking about that.
I don't know, I just dropped something on the floor.
Stop playing the games. Stop playing the games. Stop playing Carly, listen, you interrupt everybody else on the stage and I interrupt you. Okay? The fact is that we don't want to hear about your careers. Back and forth, following you back and forth. You did well, you did poorly. You're both successful people. Congratulations. You know who's not successful? The middle class in this country who get plowed over by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Let's start talking about those issues tonight and stop this childish back and forth between the two of us.
Hey, man, you know what? You said it straight.
Well, I thought we had been hearing quite a bit about Governor Christie's record as governor. Actually, I think track records are very important. I completely agree that what's at stake here is the future of this nation and the future of every American. But I do think that a track record of leadership is vital because in the end, this election is about leadership. And let's talk about what leadership is. It's not about braggadocio. It is about challenging the status quo, solving problems, producing results, and the highest calling of leadership is to unlock potential in others.
Thank you.
Problems have festered in Washington for too long,
Thank you.
and the potential of this nation
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fiorina.
Thank you.
I'm coming to you. Let me ask the question. You can use it.
God bless you.
Donald
Thank
Trump
you.
says that the hedge fund
I love
guys
you.
are getting away with murder by paying a lower tax rate. He wants to raise the taxes of hedge fund managers, as does Governor Bush.
Hedge
Do you
fund.
agree?
I don't at this point
Hedge
agree with
fund.
changing the incentives for investment and risk taking. But let's just stop for a second. There's one
Dental
person on the
plan.
stage who does have a record. I'm the only person on the stage and one of the few people in this country that led the effort as the chief architect of the last time we balanced the federal budget. We also cut taxes. And when I left Washington in 2000, we had a $5 trillion surplus and the economy was booming. I'd spent 10 years of my life to get us to that point. Went out into the private sector. It was a great experience. And went into Ohio and took an $8 billion hole and turned it into a $2 billion surplus. We've had the largest amount of tax cuts of any sitting governor. We've grown well over 300,000 jobs. You see, I've done it in both places. I'm the only one here that's done it in both places. It took a lot to get us to a balanced budget. It was legitimate and negotiated.
Mr. Thumper, why are you saying that?
I take this position and that position. You know what? At the end of the day, America's got to work. We got to figure out how we come together to deal with this, with our fiscal problems. Because when we deal with that, we create a stronger economy for everybody. People have a chance to rise. So you know, when we think about how we make a choice, it's the person that lands that plane. It's not somebody that talks about it. It's about the person who's done it. And I've done it in both places. And I did it, including people in the other party, and that's how we were successful, and that's how I will be president, using that experience to drive this country forward.
I want to bring you in on the question of hedge fund managers. You have said that you are bothered by the fact that hedge fund managers pay such a low tax rate and make 100 times what people who work for them make. Do you agree with what Donald Trump and Governor Bush have proposed, raising their tax rates?
I have a different idea. I think we ought to get rid of all the taxes on people who produce. Why should we penalize productivity? And it's why I'm an unabashed supporter of the fair tax, which would be a tax on our consumption rather than a tax on our productivity. In other words, not a tax income for what they earn, whether it's a worker who's working by the hour or whether it's a hedge fund manager. If they can produce something and bring capital and labor to create jobs, we need some jobs. And I think the fair tax makes more sense. Now, Jake, I've been listening to everybody on the stage, and there's a lot of back and forth about I'm the only one who's done this, the only one who's done that. I've done great things. We've all done great things, or we wouldn't be on this stage. But it occurs to me as we're sitting here in the Reagan Library that most of us would like to pay tribute to a guy who, when he got elected, didn't get elected telling everybody how great he was. He got elected telling everybody how great the American people were.
and he empowered them to live their dreams, which is what I love to see us do by no longer penalizing the people who are out there working, because they're taking a gut punch right now.
Thank you, Governor. Dr. Carson, you support scrapping the entire tax code and replacing it with a flat tax based on the principle of tithing from the Bible. If you make $10 billion, you pay $1 billion in taxes. If you make $10, you pay $1 in taxes. Donald Trump believes in progressive taxation. He says it's not right that rich people pay the same as the poor. Tell Donald Trump why his ideas on taxes are wrong.
It's all about America. You know, the people who say the guy who paid $1 billion because he got 10, he's still got $9 billion left. That's not fair. We need to take more of his money. That's called socialism. That doesn't work so well. What made America into a great nation was the fact that we said, that guy just put in $1 billion. Let's create an environment that's even more conducive to his success so that next year he can put in $2 billion. And that's the kind of thing that helps us to grow. We can't grow by continuing to take a piece of pie and dividing it and redistributing it. But I'm also looking at what Governor Huckabee talked about. The fair tax. Looking at both of them, we're evaluating them both, and I'm talking to the American people, because one of the things we must recognize is that this country is of, for, and by the people. And it's really time that the government get out of the way and let the people be the ones who decide how they want to run their country.
Mr. Trump, what do you think of the flat?
Ben Carson knows what to say.
Well, I think the thing about the flat tax I know very well that I don't like is if you make $200 million a year, you pay 10%, you're paying very little relatively to somebody that's making $50,000 a year has to hire H&R Block to do the work because it's so complicated. One thing I'll say to Ben is that we've had a graduated tax system for many years, so it's not a socialistic thing. What I'd like to do is, and I'll be putting in the plan in about 2 weeks, and I think people are going to like it, it's a major reduction in taxes. It's a major reduction for the middle class. The hedge fund guys won't like me as much as they like me right now. I know them all, but they'll pay more. I know people that are making a tremendous amount of money and paying virtually no tax, and I think it's unfair.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Senator Paul.
I'm glad we're having a discussion about taxes because everybody laments that we lose jobs overseas. We have. Our companies and our jobs are being chased overseas by a 70,000-page tax code. So that's why I've chosen to get rid of the whole thing and have one single rate, 14.5% for everybody, business and for corporate income and personal income. But we also get rid of the payroll tax, so the working class will get a tax break as well. So I think a flat tax.
What I don't understand is why the middle class gets caught.
Governor Walker, I want to go to you. Dr. Carson wants to raise the federal minimum wage. You have called it a lame
I don't understand
idea.
how that
Why is
works.
raising the federal minimum wage lame?
So the best way to help people
How does that
see their
benefit
wages go up is to get them the education and skills they need to take on careers and pay far more than minimum wage. And it's why we talk about it's all about jobs.
I don't know, but that's why so many people are changing.
And that last person was trying to jump in on taxes. To me, it's not just about taxes, cutting taxes. I've done as much as anybody. I've cut income taxes, I've cut property taxes, I've cut property taxes more today in my state than they were before he took office. Really,
Like, wouldn't it make more sense to tax people with more money?
Based on Ronald Reagan tax cuts in
That's what I'm saying. That's what a lot of them
that
want to
might
do.
have one of the longest sustained periods of economic growth in American history. All the things we should be talking about tonight are about how we create jobs, helping people get the skills and the education qualifications they need to succeed. That's the way you help people create jobs. It's part of our larger plan, reform the tax code, cut taxes, to put in place an education system that gives people the skills and education that they need, to put in place all the above energy policies, which start on day one with the Obamacare. The only one on the stage who's actually got a plan. It's just an actual plan to repeal Obamacare on day one.
No, I'm here. What's up, guys?
And to make sure they actually enact it.
I was making some coffee because I was actually starting to fall asleep.
Same rules as everybody else.
Thank you, Governor. Dr. Carson, Governor Walker didn't really answer the question, but I'll let you respond. You call raising the federal minimum wage lame. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, let me say what I actually said about raising the minimum wage. I was asked, should it be raised? I said, probably, or possibly. But what I added, which I think is the most important thing, is I said we need to get both sides of this issue to sit down and talk about it, negotiate a reasonable minimum wage and index that. so that we never have to have this conversation again in the history of America. I think we also have to have two minimum wages, a starter and a sustained. Because how are young people ever going to get a job if you have such a high minimum wage that it makes it impractical to hire them?
Thank you, Dr. Carson. I want to turn to you.
I said, to me, I think the real focus shouldn't be Hillary Clinton talks about the minimum wage. That's her answer to go to the economy. The answer is to give people the skills and the education so they make far more than minimum wage. I don't want to argue about how well things are going to be. I want to talk about how do we lift everyone up in the middle. That's what Reagan talked about. It wasn't how bad things were, but how to make it better for everyone. That's what we've done in Wisconsin. That's exactly what we do.
Let me bring in our partner from Salem Radio Network, Hugh Field.
I'd like to talk about winning, because I think all of you are more qualified than former Secretary of State Clinton, as were the people in the first debate. But there are different styles. And Carly Fiorina got a visit to a conveniently located next.
Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit that thumbs up like button. Type 2 if you have not done so yet. Type 3 if you're subscribed to my channel, and type 4 if you're not subscribed to me yet.
Carly Fiorina, I don't have to bring up the Secretary of State. You bring it up, she responds to it. Which one of you is wrong? Another occasion?
Well, look, people still have to get to know me, so I want to spend my time talking about my experience, reforming welfare, balancing budgets, cutting taxes, providing economic growth when I was in Washington, turning Ohio around, $8 billion in the hole, $2 billion surplus, up over 300,000 jobs, big tax cuts, strengthening our credit. All those things matter. But you know, I as a young man, in my first election in 1978, I defeated an incumbent Democrat. I defeated an incumbent Democrat in 1982, running on the Reagan program. I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat that year. And then when I won for election governor, I was the first Republican to defeat an incumbent in 36 years, and the first person to have never run statewide, out of politics for 10 years, to beat an incumbent. That hadn't happened for 96 years. So we'll get to the point where we'll talk about Hillary Clinton.
Smell the coffee?
Yeah.
You like it?
But right now,
It smells like dessert time.
Yeah,
That's how it is. That's the smell of dessert time in my house, like on a Saturday when company comes over.
You ever notice when people run for office, they run for president, they make a lot of promises, they don't keep them. I don't think they do that, and I'm going to be out there pushing it all. Don't worry about it.
Timothy, you could, Dylan, you could probably change it back in like 24 hours.
I can promise you that.
Carly Fiorina, your style.
You see, Governor Christie, people spend a lot of time talking about.
You know she's 61 years old.
I have every right to do the same.
Are you
Mrs. Clinton
serious?
Yeah.
have to defend her track record. Her track record of lying about Benghazi, of lying about her emails, about lying about her servers. She does not have a track record of accomplishment. Like Mrs. Clinton, I too have traveled hundreds of thousands of miles around the world. But unlike Mrs. Clinton, I know that flying is an activity. It is not an accomplishment. Mrs. Clinton, if you want to stump a Democrat, ask them to name an accomplishment of Mrs. Clinton.
Thank you, Ms. Fiorina. Governor Christie, your name was mentioned. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Listen, you know, it's an important point. And the question is, who's going to prosecute Hillary Clinton? The Obama White House sees that no interest. The Justice Department sees that no interest. I think it's time to put a former federal prosecutor on the same stage with Hillary Clinton. And I will prosecute her during those debates on that stage for the record that we're talking about here. The fact that she had a private email server in Facebook using national security secrets running through it could have been hacked by the Russians, the Chinese, or two 18-year-olds on a tube wanting to have some fun. No one's answering that question from the Hillary Clinton. I know why? Because she knows she's wrong, and she cannot look in the mirror at herself, and she cannot tell the American people the truth.
Thank you, Governor Christie. There is a whole lot more coming up ahead. A world of
I'm reading the comments. I have my TV cranked all the way up. It's on 100 right now. My speakers just suck, unfortunately.
On Wednesday, September 30th, in IMAX 3D and premium large screens, the Academy Award-winning director of Forrest Gump, Castaway, and Flight invites the whole family to an experience you have to see to believe.
What?
The Walk, the triumphant true story, rated PG.
Jesus Christmas.
Isn't it? As usual. with some new cars. All about to steal. At the supermarket shows.
You sure you don't want to cut?
Make sure everyone
Yeah,
got
I'm
the
sure I'll
kids
never
happy.
sleep for that.
What's up for the next show? Nothing much. Just keep relaxing. Doing the big things that move an economy.
Please note to everyone that this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content.
Yes.
What you make isn't supposed to be the best part of you when you're a father. That's what's supposed to be the best part of you. Steve, it's
Steve Jobs, sweetheart.
Steve Yubbs.
What are you doing, Dad? Sending in a debate question. You know, my show's coming back. Somebody's got to do it. September 27th, 10 p.m. Any change from the
See, everyone wants Trump on there, on everything. You don't know why?
I mean, like, I get he's entertaining, but I couldn't take him seriously if someone actually did vote for him.
I don't know. Again, we haven't seen the Democratic candidates talk yet.
Can you guys tuck in your shirts? You look ridiculous.
This is a smart casual.
No, nothing's here. Don't look insult me. Nice shirt.
That isn't my shirt. That's the one. That's the one.
Nice shirt.
You ask me more about a shirt. The mid-season now 3-time Emmy-winning Parts Unknown starts September 27th.
Everyone watching, type 1 if you have hit that thumbs up like button. Type 2 if you haven't yet. Type 3 if you're subscribed to me. And type 4 if you are not subscribed to me yet.
Welcome back to CNN's Republican presidential debate. Let's turn to some issues now in foreign policy. Mr. Trump, Senator Rubio said it was, quote, very concerning to him that in a recent interview you didn't seem to know the details about some of the enemies the U.S. faces. Rubio said if you don't know the answers to those questions, you will not be able to serve as Commander-in-Chief. Please respond to Senator Rubio.
Well, I heard you knew it. He apologized because he actually said that we had a misunderstanding, and he said today that Donald Trump is maybe the best interview that he's ever done. Now, he was just saying that on CNN to be nice, but he did say that.
Yeah, I'll be alert tomorrow.
He had a legitimate misunderstanding in terms of his pronunciation of the word, but I would say just, well, I think it was, and he actually said that. Did you say that? So, yeah,
So I did coffee.
so I will say this, though. You was giving me name after name, Arab name, and there are few people anywhere that would know his name. I think he was reading them off a sheet. And frankly, I will have, and I told him, I will have the finest team that anybody's put together, and we will solve a lot of problems. You know, right now, they know a lot, and look at what's happening. The world is blowing up around us. We will have great teams and great people. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, you are in the Senate, but I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does, but it's the following way. This is an important question. I think if you're running for president, these are important issues. Because look around the world today. There is a lunatic in North Korea with dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already hit the very place in which we stand tonight. The Chinese are rapidly expanding their military. They hacked into our computer. They're building artificial islands in the South China Sea, the most important shipping lane in the world. A gangster in Moscow is not just threatening Europe, he's threatening to destroy and divide NATO.
Where?
You have radical jihadists in dozens of countries across multiple continents, and they even recruit Americans using social media to try to attack us here at home. And now we've got this horrible deal in Iran where a radical Shia player with an apocalyptic vision of the future is also guaranteed to one day possess nuclear weapons and also a long-range rocket that can hit the United States. These are extraordinarily dangerous times that we live in. And the next president of the United States better be someone that understands these issues and has good judgment about them.
Because the number one issue that the president
Well,
will
from
ever
Canada,
confront,
I guess.
and the most important obligation of the federal government
Watch your hand
is to
over
keep this nation safe. And today, we are not doing that. We are eviscerating our military, and we have a president that is more respectful to the Ayatollah of Iran than he is to the Prime Minister of Israel. Mr. Trump.
Senator Rubio seemed to be suggesting that you don't know information that
He's suggesting that at all. I don't think he's suggesting that.
I think that we should have a deeper debate about these issues because there is no more important decision that the president will make.
But are you saying that you have the knowledge to be the president that Mr. Trump does not have?
Well, you should ask him questions in detail about the foreign policy issues our president will confront because you better be able to lead our country on the first day. Not 6 months from now, not a year from now. On the first day in office, our president could very well confront a national security crisis. We can't predict it. Sometimes we cannot control it. And it is the federal government does all kinds of things it's not supposed to be doing. It regulates bathrooms. It regulates schools that belong to local communities. But the one thing that the federal government must do, the one thing that only the federal government can do is keep us safe. And a president better be up to date on those issues on his first day in office, or on her first day in office.
Mr. Trump.
You have to understand, I am not sitting in the United States Senate with, by the way, the worst voting record there is today. Number one, I am not sitting in the United States Senate. I'm a businessman doing business transactions. I am doing business transactions. I will know more about this. And as you said, I was very acceptable. And when you listened to that whole interview, it's a great interview. You said it, I didn't. Well, now I didn't. But listen, just one second. I never get I will know more about the problems of this world by the time I sit. And you look at what's going on in this world right now by people that supposedly know this world is a mess.
Senator Rubio, he did your absentee record in the
I'm
Senate.
proud to serve in the United States Senate. You know, when I ran 5 years ago, the entire leadership of my party in Washington lined up against me. But I'm glad I ran. And I'm glad that I ran. Because this country's headed in the wrong direction. And if we keep electing the same people, nothing is going to change. And you're right, I have missed some votes, and I'll tell you why, Mr. Trump. Because in my years in the Senate, I figured out very quickly that the political establishment in Washington, D.C., in both political parties, is completely out of touch with the lives of our people. You have millions of people in this country living paycheck to paycheck, and nothing's being done about it.
Damn straight.
We are about to leave our children with $18 trillion in debt, and they're about to raise the debt limit again. We have a world that grows increasingly dangerous, and we are eviscerating our military spending and signing deals with Iran. And if this thing continues, we are going to be the first Americans to leave our children worse off than ourselves. That's why I'm missing votes, because I am leaving the Senate, I'm not running for re-election, and I'm running for president because I know this. Unless we have the right president, we cannot make America fulfill its potential. But with the right person in office, the 21st century can be the greatest era that our nation has ever known.
Thank you, Senator Rubio. I want to turn now to Hugh Hewitt.
Hey, Jake. I've got a lot of great interviews with all of you, but Governor Bush, I talked to you in February about the biggest elephant in a room full of elephants, which is the last day. And you told me that you would not be burdened either by your brother or your father's legacy in the Middle East. And then a week later, you rolled out with this foreign policy advisors. There was a lot of the band getting back together again. So on behalf of the military that is watching, the active duty military that are at the end of the spear, the former commander-in-chief, Jeb Bush, told me, who are the advisors that are really here too? First of all, if you're looking at Republican advisors, you have to go to the last two administrations, but that would be 41 and 43. So just by definition, if you're many of the people here that are seeking advice from the foreign policy experts on the Republican side, they serve in Nancy administration, Alberto's administration. Of course that's the case. But I'm my own man. I'm going to create a strategy that's based on the simple fact that the United States needs to lead the world. The first thing we need to do is to stop the craziness of the sequester, rebuild our military so that we don't deploy people over and over again without the necessary equipment to keep them safe, to send a signal to the world that we're serious. If we're going to lead the world, then we need to have the strongest military possible. We need to rebuild our counterintelligence and intelligence capabilities. We need to focus on the fact that the next president's going to start in 2017, not in 1990, 30 years ago, or when my brother started. The world is dramatically different. And I believe that we need to restore America's presence and leadership in the world. Name a country where our relationship is better today than it was the day that Barack Obama got elected president. Under Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, we've seen a weakness that now creates huge problems for the next president of the United States. So I'll have a team that will be following the doctrine that I set up, and it will be peace through strength. We're sitting here in this library
instant person, but you have to know when to use the military. I'm the only person up here that fought against going into Iraq. Now, excuse me, 1 second. You know, you are, yes, yeah, you do have your 1%. I was like, and I think it's very important. I think it's important because it's about judgment. It's about judgment. I didn't want to go into Iraq, and I fought it because what I said here, was you're going to destabilize the Middle East, and that's what happened. So it's referred to the first trips.
Right after me, you have the floor. What do you guys say in the Senate? We're talking and debating.
Absolutely.
Here's the fact. When Donald Trump talks about judgment, what was his position on who had been the best negotiator to deal with Iran? It wasn't a Republican. It was Hillary Clinton. That's what you believe.
Patrick McDonald, chips do sound good, but I'm doing low carb right now, so
Is really dangerous.
can't have chips.
So, is that the judgment that you bring to the table? That Hillary Clinton is a great negotiator, that she could bring about a better...
Trying to lose some of the weight.
Your brother's administration gave us Barack Obama because it was such a disaster.
A little more
those last 2
jippy.
months that Abraham Lincoln couldn't have been elected.
You know what? As it relates to my brother, there's one thing I know for sure. He kept us safe. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the rubber? Do you remember the firefighter with his arm around it? He sent a clear signal that the United States would be strong and fight Islamic terrorism, and he did keep us safe.
I don't know, you feel safe right now? I don't feel so safe.
Now, that's because of Barack Obama, we had a president who called ISIS the JV squad, Yemen a success story, Iran a place we can do business with. It's not because of George W. Bush, it's because of Barack Obama. And whether we're talking about national security, foreign policy, or we're talking about domestic policy,
The collapse of the economy.
the key issue here is talking about leadership. Now, there's a lot of great people out there. There's a lot of great ideas out there. But I would ask the American people, look at who's been tested. When there were 100,000 protesters in my cabinet, I didn't back down. When they issued death threats against me and threats against my family, I didn't back down. When they tried to recall me, I didn't back down. When they made me the number one target last year, I didn't back down. Give me the chance to be your president. Thank you, Governor. Back down to the Senator Paul.
The remark was made that there hadn't been anyone else on the podium opposed to the Iraq War. I've made my career as being an opponent of the Iraq War. I was opposed to the Syrian War. I was opposed to arming the people who are our enemies. Iran is now stronger because Hussein is gone. Hussein was the great bulwark and counterbalance to the Iranians. So when we complain about the Iranians, they need to remember that the Iraq War made it worse. Originally, Governor Bush was asked, was the Iraq War a mistake? And he said, no, we'll do it again. We have to learn. Sometimes the interventions backfire. The Iraq War backfired and did not help us. We're still paying the repercussions of a bad decision. We have to make a decision now in Syria. Should we topple Assad? Many up here wanted to topple Assad. I said no because if we do, ISIS will now be
Let me say, I understand that Governor Bush's name is going to go, and then we can go to your Senator Rubio.
Here's the lessons of history. When we pull back, voids are created. We left Iraq. We should have had a forces agreement to stay there with a small force. And instead of that, we politically and militarily pulled back, and now we have the creation of ISIS. 36 days ago, in this very library, I gave a speech with a comprehensive strategy of how to take out ISIS. And it requires American leadership and engagement. We don't have to be the world's policeman, but we certainly have to be the world's leader. We need to make sure that the world knows that we're serious, that we're engaged, that we're not going to pull back, that our word matters. And if we do that, we can create a force that will take out ISIS both in Iraq and in Syria, which will take a lot longer time now because of what President Obama has done by pulling back.
I want to go even deeper in that direction because I think the belief that somehow by retreating America makes the world safer has been disproven every single time it's ever been tried. Syria is a perfect example of it. The uprising in Syria was not started by the United States. It was started by the Syrian people. And I warned at the time, this was 3.5 years ago, I openly and repeatedly warned that if we did not find modern elements on the ground that we could equip and arm, that void would be filled by radical jihadists. Well, the president didn't listen. The administration didn't follow through. And that's exactly what happened. That is why ISIS grew. That is why ISIS then came over the border from Syria and back into Iraq. What is happening in that region is the direct consequence of the inability to lead and of disengagement. And the more we disengage,
I think Ben Carson is a pretty good guy, honestly.
flying out of Damascus
He always seems like he has the right thing to say.
Dr. Carson.
I haven't had an opportunity to weigh in on foreign policy, and I just want to mention that when the issue occurred in 2003, I suggested to President Bush that he not go to war. Okay, so I just want that on the record. And, you know, a lot of people are very much against us getting involved right now.
I really like this guy, Ben Carson. I don't know, he's just so soft-spoken. He just seems, he's very level-headed. He's like the only guy up there that hasn't been cutting people off. He's just being respectful. You know? Everybody else is cutting everybody off.
Who actually want to destroy us. They are an existential threat to our nation. And we have to be mature enough to recognize that our children will have no future if we put our heads in the sand. We have to recognize we have two choices. We either allow them to continue to progress and appear to be the winners, or we use every resource available to us to destroy it.
It's interesting that you say that, because I want to ask Governor Christie about something else that you had said. Governor Christie, we just marked the 14th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And Dr. Carson has said that if he had been president at the time, the United States would not have gone to war in Afghanistan. What does that say to you about how Dr. Carson would respond as president if America were attacked again?
Jake, I was named U.S. Attorney by President Bush on September 10th, 2001. And that next day, my wife, Mary Pat, did what she did every day. She traveled through the World Trade Center. I went to her office 2 blocks for the World Trade Center. And after those planes hit for 5.5 hours, after that, I couldn't reach her, didn't know whether she was dead or alive. We had 3 children at the time, 8, 5, and 1. And I had to confront what so many thousands of others in my region had confronted. The idea that I might become a single parent, the idea that my life and my children's life might be changed forever. We lost friends that day. We went to the funerals. And I will tell you that what those people wanted and what they deserved was for America to answer back against what had been done to them. And I support what President Bush did at that time, going into Afghanistan, hunting Al-Qaeda and its leaders, getting its sanctuary out of place, and making it as difficult around the world for them to get people and money. And then he went to prosecutors like us, and he said, never again. Don't prosecute these people after the crime is committed. Intervene before the crime happens. I absolutely believe that what the president did at the time was right, and I am proud to have been one of the people on the stage who was part of making sure that what Governor Bush said before was the truth. America was safe for those 7 years, and Barack Obama has taken that safety away from us.
Recognize that President George W. Bush is a great friend of ours. And we made wonderful days at the White House. I haven't been there in the last 7 years. I probably haven't had a food festival. But at any rate, I didn't suggest that nothing be done. What I suggested to President Bush,
thank you, Bobby Network,
was to be Kennedy-esque in the sense that when the Russians got ahead of us in the space race, what we did is use the bullet pulpit to galvanize everybody, business, industry, academia, behind a national goal to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely. I said, you can do the same kind of thing. Declare that within 5 to 10 years we would become petroleum independent. The moderate Arab states would have been so concerned about that, they would have turned over Osama bin Laden and anybody else you wanted on a silver platter within 2 weeks. There are smart ways to do things, and there are muscular ways to do things, and sometimes you have to look at both of those to come up with the right solution.
I would say this, Jake, is that while that may have been a fine idea that Dr. Carson had, these people were out to kill us. I stood in that region with my family, and every time a plane went overhead, in the weeks after that, people's heads jerked to the sky because they thought it was happening again. You do not need to go through subtle diplomacy at that point. That can be handled later on. What you need is a strong American leader who will take the steps that are necessary to protect our nation. That's what I would do as commander-in-chief in this circumstance, and that's what President George W. Bush did in 2001.
Dr. Carson?
I have no argument with having a strong leader and to be aggressive where aggression is needed. But it's not needed in every circumstance. There is a time when you can that's what we have to start thinking about. There is no question that a lot of these problems that we have been talking about in terms of the international situation.
That's right, Jason Garcia.
It's because our Navy is so small. It's because our Air Force is incapable of doing the same things that it did a few years ago. It's because our Marine Corps is not ready to be deployed. There are a lot of problems that are going on, and we need to solve those problems. We need to build up our right to hear.
They require, what they need is they need an operating space. That's what Afghanistan was for Al Qaeda. It was a vacuum that they filled and they created an operating space.
But how do you
That's
know? How do you know? You're assuming shit. This guy, Al Qaeda and Afghanistan.
An operating space to grow.
You're observing nothing. You're not there.
Conducting operations in the Sinai. They're now in Afghanistan trying to supply the
All these people are great bullshit artists, for the exception of Ben Carson.
You cannot allow radical jihadists to have an operating safe haven anywhere in the world.
Just today, there was a new report that 50 different intelligence analysts had said that what they sent up the ladder was doctored by senior officials so that they could give some happy talk to the situation that we face. I love the idea of a good intellectual capacity to deal with our enemies, but the fact is, if you don't have good intelligence that's reliable and it's honest, you're not going to have good intelligence and you cannot make good decisions. The next president is primarily elected not just to know things, but to know what to do with the things that he knows. And the most dangerous person in any room is the person who doesn't know what he doesn't know. And the reason Barack Obama has been dangerous to this country, and we better elect someone who's had some executive experience, is because we cannot afford another 8 years having a person in the office who doesn't know what he does not know.
Thank you, Governor. I want to turn to ISIS.
None of you guys know. You're not going to know shit until you're there.
There's a big debate right now. We've been talking about ISIS here and there.
I think Obama was scared, honestly. There's a lot of pressure on him.
Fight ISIS in Iraq and Syria. In the first debate earlier this evening, Senator Lindsey Graham argued that candidates are only serious about fighting ISIS if they're willing to send 10,000 U.S. troops to Iraq, 10,000 U.S. troops as part of the coalition to Syria. Dr. Walker, you said, you just told me a few days ago, that the 3,000 U.S. troops there right now are enough as long as the rules of engagement are changed. What do you know that Senator Graham doesn't know?
To be clear, what I said the other day is that we need to lift the political restrictions that are on in place. Barack Obama's administration has put political restrictions on the military personnel already on life. We need to lift those, and then we need to listen to our military experts, not the political forces in the White House, but our military experts about how many more we send in. And we certainly shouldn't have a commander-in-chief who sends a message to our adversaries as to how far we're going to go and how far we're willing to fight. So I'm not putting a troop number on. What I'm saying is lift the political restrictions. When we do that, we empower our military personnel already there to work with the Kurd and the Syrian allies to reclaim the territory taken by ISIS. So we do so in a way that allows that ISIS doesn't go back in Syria. We're just talking about it. That is the fundamental problem going forward. We have a president, and Hillary Clinton was a part of this, by the way, who has made political decisions for our men and women in uniform. I want the men and women at home to know. If I am commander-in-chief, I will only send you into harm's way when our national security is at risk. And if we do, you know you'll have our full support, the support of the American people, and you'll have a clear path to the
Thank you, Governor. Senator Paul, I want to go to you because you have said that the boots on the ground to fight ISIS need to be Arab boots. We just learned today that despite the Obama administration spending $500 million to help create those Arab boots, there are only 4 or 5 U.S. trained fighters in Syria fighting ISIS. What does that say to you about the effectiveness of the idea of the boots on the ground need to be Arab boots?
If you want boots on the ground and you want them to be our sons and daughters, you got 14 other choices. There will always be a Bush or Clinton for you if you want to go back to war in Iraq. But the thing is, the first war was a mistake, and I'm not sending our sons and our daughters back to Iraq. The war didn't work. We can amplify those who live there. The Kurds deserve to be armed.
Patrick, what about Trump?
We use our Air Force to amplify the forces there. But the boots on the ground need to be the people who live there. My goodness, I'm still upset with the Saudi Arabians for everything they do over there. They've funded the arms of the jihadists. They're not accepting any of the people, any of the migrants that have been, the refugees that have been pushed out of Syria. Saudi Arabia is not accepting them. Why are we always the world's patsies and we have to go to them and fight their wars for them? They need to fight their wars. We need to defend American interests, but it's not in America's national security interest to have another war.
We're going to turn to some domestic issues now. I want to bring in my colleague Dan with us.
Just make one point on this whole military discussion. I called for boots on the ground many months ago in a coalition with our friends who share our interests. You know, you win a battle with the military, and when we go somewhere, we need to be mobile, we need to take care of business, and we need to come home. But we face also a bigger war, and you win the bigger war with a battle of ideas. You wonder why young people, educated people, rich people, school people have tried to join ISIS. Western civilization, all of us need to wake up to the fact that those murderers and rapists need to be called out, and in Western civilization, we need to make it clear that our faith in the Jewish and Christian principles
Whoa, what?
bigger than ourselves,
You still up?
yeah. So that we can battle the radicals, call them out for what they are, and make sure that all of our people feel fulfilled in living in Western civilization. This is a giant battle in the world today.
Yeah, Patrick, I mean, honestly, other than the fact that Trump says, you know, the whole pro-life thing, because I think it should be pro-choice. I think a woman should be able to choose if she wants to have the kid or not, you know? I mean, otherwise, I think Trump would be hilarious as a president.
Specifically, what that means is we need about 50 Army brigades, we need about 36 Marine battalions, we need somewhere between 300 and 350 naval ships.
Where are you getting these numbers from? Thank you. All right, it's like, oh, we need this. We need 36 Marines in each house in America. We also need a partridge in a pear tree. Where are you getting these figures from?
After Chief Justice John Roberts voted to uphold Obamacare twice, Senator Cruz criticized your brother for appointing John Roberts to the Supreme Court. Looking back on it, did your brother make a mistake?
Well, I'm surprised Senator Cruz would say that since he was a strong supporter of John Roberts at the time. I will talk about what I will do as President of the United States as it relates to appointing Supreme Court justices. We need to make sure that we have justices that with a proven, experienced record of respect for upholding the Constitution. That is what we need. We can't have the history in recent past is appoint people that have no experience so that you can't get attacked. And that makes it harder for people to have confidence that they won't veer off on decisions. John Roberts has made some really good decisions, for sure, but he did not have a proven, extensive record that would have made the clarity an important thing. And that's what we need to do. And I'm willing to fight for those nominees to make sure that they get passed. You can't do it the politically expedient way anymore. This is the culture in Washington. You have to fight hard for these appointments. This is perhaps the most important thing that the next president will do.
You like what you just heard?
Everybody watching, type 1 if you have hit the thumbs up. Type 2 if you haven't yet. Type 3 if you're subscribed to me. And type 4 if you're not subscribed yet.
He's a good enough lawyer that he knows in these Obamacare cases, he changed the statute, he changed the law in order to force that failed law on millions of Americans to live without it. And you know, we're frustrated as conservatives. We keep winning elections, and then we don't get the outcome we wanted. Let me focus on two moments in time. Number one, in 1990, in one room was David Souter, in another room was Edith Jones, the Rockwood conservative of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. George Herbert Walker Bush appointed David Souter. And then in 2005, in one room was John Roberts, in another room was Mike Wunderbaugh. Mike Ludig, the Rockwood conservative on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. George W. Bush appointed John Roberts. And let me give you the consequences of that. If instead the President Bush had appointed Edith Jones and Mike Ludig, which is who I would have appointed, Obamacare would have been struck down 3 years ago, and the marriage laws of all 50 states would be on the books. These matter, and I fought to defend the Constitution my whole life.
That's understandable, Patrick. I understand.
As I said, he supported John Roberts. He supported him publicly. So you can rewrite history, I guess, Ted, but the simple fact is that you supported him because he had all the criteria that you would have thought would have made a great justice. And I think he is doing a good job. But the simple fact is, going forward, what we need to do is to have someone that has a long-standing
Well, anyway, folks, I'm going to end things right here because I'm starting to fall asleep. But please note this video is in compliance with YouTube's terms of service and is not to be considered misleading, spam, or commercially deceptive content. Thank you all so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and please subscribe to my channel. And I hope you guys all have a great night. Thanks for watching and tuning in. Take care, everybody. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Seriously, I really do. But before I go, I just want to say, Donald Trump, as much as people hate him, he might actually be a good choice, for the exception of the pro-life thing. But yeah, what do you guys think? That's the question. Is Trump good or bad? Tell me in the comments. Good night.